I'm your host, Ch.19. We're here every Tuesday from 6:15 to 7:15. We're going to have a great show tonight, and you guys need to get your pencil, your paper out. We're going to be talking with Bill Baldwin with Boulevard Real Estate. He's going to be in the first half of the show, and we're going to be talking about Chapter 19. And I can tell you that most of the people listening to this show tonight, you don't know anything about Chapter 19. Also, we've got Sharon Stodghill going to be talking about wills and why that's important on the second half of the show. The numbers here are 281-837-2222. We've got a very, very tight schedule tonight, and so we're going to be talking about Chapter 19. And one of the things before we get started, I would like to talk a little bit about you people, I say you people, but people who are out getting their houses remodeled, getting them fixed. You guys are using contractors, and it's such an issue right now because you're choosing contractors, and you need to know in the state of Texas, no, you don't have to be licensed to be a contractor. You don't have to be licensed to build a house here. So you need to be very careful on who you use to put your house back together. And I'm going to make a real common sense statement. Don't always go with the lowest bid. It's just not the right thing to do if you want it done right. My name is Ch.19. We're here every Tuesday from 6:15 to 7:15 on the Real Estate Corner. You can also catch us on Sunday morning Sunday evening at 8 p.m. and Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And my guest in the studio is Bill Baldwin. Bill, thank you for coming to the Real Estate Corner.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, Chad.
You know, we've got a lot to talk about, and so it's kind of like sitting on rapid fire, but we've got probably one of the most impact shows I've had here in a long time. How did Harvey change the real estate landscape?
Well, I think it forever changed the landscape, not only immediately with rising water, but the future development pattern of the entire city is impacted by the storm and its aftermath and what the city's done as a result of that storm.
What is Chapter 19? Because there were a lot in the paper. I know the realtors were at it, talking with you guys, talking with the city. And before you go into Chapter 19, Bill, give them your background. I know you sit on the Planning Commission. You're a longtime realtor. You've got a very successful office in the Heights area. So tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm the broker and owner of Boulevard Realty. I've been at it 21 years now. I have an office in the Heights and on Kirby near West University Place. I had the fortunate distinction of being on the mayor's executive transition team, overseeing initiatives for the mayor, impacting everything across the city. And then I chaired the quality of life transition team, which was neighborhoods, parks, arts, and green space. And I was the mayor's first appointment of his administration to the Planning Commission. And I serve in a number of roles that have been an advisor to the mayor in these sort of issues.
And Bill has the mayor's ear. That I do know. So Bill is one person that can whisper in his ear and
so long as I don't steer him wrong, I get to keep giving him advice.
And I doubt you're going to do that. So tell us about Chapter 19.
We've had Chapter 19 for quite a while. It is the floodplain ordinance, and it has always just been the 100-year floodplain. But on April 4th, City Council adopted new regulations for Chapter 19, which would include the 500-year floodplain, and these rules go into effect September 1. So everything we're talking about starts September 1 and will be hard and fast from there. People talk to me all the time about, well, what does that really mean? 30% of all of the tracts of land in the city of Houston are in the 100-year floodplain, and 7% of the tracts are in the 500-year floodplain. So that's a total of 164,000 parcels of land that have been replatted out of 500 and a little over 500,000. So not building in the floodplain is not an option. We're going to build in the floodplain. We always have, and we always will. It's how we build in the floodplain. And from September 1 forward, it's going to be heavily more regulated, more stringent, more complicated, and higher than ever before. We've incrementally been making progress over the last few decades, but this is a significant change post-Harvey for anything in that 37% of the city's land mass.
Now, we're doing TV and we're doing radio. If you could kind of just paint the picture of where the 500-year floodplain? I don't need to get exacts, but just give us an idea.
It's everywhere. There's 23 watersheds throughout the entire city. So
Wow.
water flows from the western portion of our region to the port of Houston, the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
Water is going to get from Fulshear and Katy through downtown and through Channelview on its way to the port of Houston, north, south, east, and west. The thing about Harvey, unlike any other real disaster, there was equitable distribution. The rainfall was just as hard in Kingwood as it was in Meyerland as it was in West Houston, and so it impacted all of the city. We designed these streets to hold what is basically 10-year storms. So I take my pint jar over here and I pour my gallon of water into the street. The water has nowhere to go. The capacity is not there. So while we're talking about bayous and channels and lakes, we're just talking about the gridded system of streets is designed to carry water. I mean, it's designed that way, but it's inadequate and not able to carry the amount of rainfall that we're experiencing.
Tell us about Chapter 19. Let's get into the details of Chapter 19. You guys, you need to get your pen and pencil out. And by the way, this show is brought to you by American Title, Dixie Hardware, and my new sponsor, Prosperity Bank. The numbers here again are 281-837-2222. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill, and he's going to go through Chapter 19 with you. Get your pens and paper out.
Just for the background, the way these flood determinations are made, it's the quantity of rainfall that occurs over a certain period of time. So it's either 12 inches in 12 hours or 15 inches over 24 hours. What's happened, no matter of your political persuasion or not, it's just a fact, the intensity of rainfall is greater than ever before. As the Gulf of Mexico heats up, it's warmer climate, and so the rainfall now, where it used to rain 6 inches over a day, now it rains 15 inches over 12 hours. And so that's what's causing the problem. It's not, I mean, we've flooded for a long period of time in Houston, Texas, but it's this intensity. The maps that we've been using for the last 20 years really are not measuring accurate rainfall. And half of the geography has never even been mapped, okay?
Oh, I didn't know that.
They map the main, Greens Bayou, Sims Bayou, Buffalo Bayou, they've got those, but there are half that have not yet been mapped. Half of the channels that are out there. So we have inadequate maps, we have outdated maps, and so this is preparation for future maps. We don't know when the new maps are going to be in. There are 23 watersheds. Are they going to map all 23 and release all the maps, or are they going to do it one watershed at a time? So the city's taken a very proactive approach to keep people from flooding from this point forward. Now, the houses that have already been built, that have flooded numerous times, much of this regulation doesn't do anything to solve their problem. It really solves the problem of future development or future renovation. But what it is now doing is we are implementing substantial completion and substantial damage in the 100-year floodplain. So if the value of your house is $300,000 and $150,000 of that is land, 50%, the 50% of the improvement, if you are damaged greater than 50% of that, or if you're going to do an improvement greater than 50% of that, you're going to have to meet these new regulations. So
repeat that again, Bill, because I want to make sure people, and you use 300. Let's just use 200.
200,000.
Okay.
Have a $200,000 house, but $100,000 of it is land. So you have a $100,000 value of your improvement. If it is damaged by more than 50%, or you intend to do work greater than 50%, these new rules go into play in the 100-year floodplain.
So if I gutted my house because of Harvey and I had to put it back together,
Greater than 50%, you would not be given a permit to remodel your house and put it back the way that it was. If it's
Wow.
greater than 50%, you would be forced to raise that house or tear it down and build higher.
Okay. The numbers here again are 281-837-2222. We're talking with Bill Baldwin, and we're talking about Chapter 19. Guys, this is a huge change in how we do things here in the Houston area. Bill?
We used to have a code that basically said you would build new construction 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain. And that's because the 100-year floodplain, realtors have been able to measure that. We needed elevation certificates anyway in the 100-year floodplain. That was not that complicated for people to figure out. You could find the base flood elevation in the 100-year floodplain. Today, after September 1, we're going to then require you to build at the 500-year base flood elevation, even in the 100-year floodplain. So every realtor, listen up to what I'm saying, and everyone who's doing anything in a property in the 100-year floodplain or the 500-year floodplain needs to go get a base flood elevation of the 500-year base flood elevation in the 100-year floodplain and the 500-year floodplain. The general difference is about 1 foot to 1.5 foot across the whole city. But in many places, downtown Houston, North Main, Meyerland, the difference between the 100-year base flood elevation and the 500-year base flood elevation can be 6 feet. The difference.
Wow.
So if you were going to remodel and do an addition, you were going to be 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain, and now you have to be 2 feet above the 500-year base flood elevation. You're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 feet higher for your addition or your new construction than what was there before.
So you could have houses upset like this.
You will have houses with substantial difference between them. In Oak Forest, where we'd had some flooding after Allison and Ike, the additions were 1 foot above the 100-year base flood elevation, and the difference in those houses has been about 3 or 4 feet. So you do a master bedroom addition and you'd step up 3 or 4 feet. The new rule, 2 feet above the 500-year base flood elevation in both the 500-year floodplain and the 100-year floodplain. No difference between the two anymore. We're talking about pretty significant differences.
So if I was building a house and I built to the 500-foot floodplain, then my elevation would have to be 4 to 5 feet higher on the house?
It would be,
I'm trying to,
in general, the answer is yes. Because you're going to be 2 feet above, the minimum is going to be 2 feet above the 500-year base flood elevation, not the 100-year base flood elevation. See, before we regulated 100-year floodplain only by 1 foot.
Okay.
Now you're regulating 100 and 500, so we have more land mass, that's geography, and then you have height. The height is now the 500-year base flood elevation plus 2. So you've increased the elevation from the 100-year floodplain to the 500-year base flood elevation. That distance was higher. And now instead of being 1 foot above the 100, you're 2 foot above the 500. Just do the math. It's significantly higher.
Even in remodeling, so if I added an air conditioning system to my house or had it...
There were discussions about that. If you add an air conditioning system, you can still add that at grade. You're not forced to raise that. There was discussion you were going to have to raise it 8 feet for your air conditioning unit. You do not have to raise your air conditioning unit, although they will tell you your air conditioning unit's going to flood. You might want to think about raising it, but you don't have to today.
All right. We're talking with Bill Baldwin. Bill is here to talk about Chapter 19. This show is brought to you by Prosperity Bank. Guys, I just want to tell you, I want to welcome Prosperity Bank to the Real Estate Corner. But one of the things that they've got special, they've got a loan that's 100% loan, 600 credit score, starting at 100% loan with no MI. No one in town has this credit deal. No one has it. No one has it a loan this good. It's a 600 credit score, 100% financing, no MI. Yes, no MI. This is unbelievable. If you're in Harris County, can't be more than $74,000. If you're out in Brazoria, it's $88,000. It's a great program, and it's called the HOP program, HOPP. That's our new sponsor, Prosperity Bank. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to play a commercial. Be right back with the Real Estate Corner. Thinking about buying or selling, real estate can be a very complicated process. Finding one, how much can you afford? Get survey, put a home on the market, review the net sheets, taxes, advice on financing, homestead exemptions, advice on insurance, what kind of mortgage, inspections, considering offers, negotiations, submitting an offer, how good are the schools, down payment assistance, title insurance, home warranties, closing costs, final walkthrough. These are the pieces of the puzzle of home ownership. I'm the person who helps put it together and the glue that keeps it together. Give me a call, Shad Bargaining. Welcome back. My name is Shad Bargaining. Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Corner. We're here every Tuesday from 6:15 to 7:15. So, Bill, we're talking about Chapter 19 that affects quite a few people in this city. So, Bill, let's talk about landfill, because some people are saying, I'm going to build my yard up. I think that's going to affect the person next door to you that doesn't do it.
Right.
But how is landfill going to work, and how the city is looking at landfill?
The rule had been in the 100-year floodplain that we had zero net fill, although we know many people, especially in the 500-year floodplain, yes, where they just they brought in a bunch of dirt, truckloads of dirt, and then built their normal house, and they did impact the drainage of their adjoining property owner. So there is now zero net fill in the 100-year floodplain. Okay, and limited net fill in the 500-year floodplain. So houses are no longer going to be able to raise up their land and adversely impact the drainage of their adjoining property neighbor. So and they are constantly already implementing procedures for the 100-year floodplain, and will do so in the 500-year floodplain. In effect, Shad, in the 100-year floodplain, you're only going to have pier and beam construction. I mean, you're just virtually not going to be allowed to do slab foundations. Okay. In the 500-year floodplain, it's still going to be very difficult to build a slab house if you can't bring in a bunch of dirt, right?
Right. Bill, let's talk a little bit about how to protect the homeowners in areas like Sunnyside, Fifth Ward, City Gas, and et cetera. How are these people going to deal with the new rule changes, in your thoughts? What does the city need to do to protect them or help them?
I think there's two things, and I think the mayor's pretty firm about it. There is no way he can justify allowing people to rebuild or to build where they flood. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And so, yes, there's going to be some impact to individuals, but it's still better than flooding. So we can take we were just at a ribbon cutting yesterday for some affordable housing that's about $90,000. That future house is probably going to cost more to build. I know that it is. If you make it be pier and beam in that same location, you're going to raise the cost of that house by $20,000 or $30,000. In the mayor's mind, in his public policy, that house is going to soon have to require flood insurance, which might cost $3,000 or $4,000 a year. So that's $300 or $400 a month on their monthly payment. He would rather roll that expense, make the house be $120,000, and you're paying the exact same amount as you would have with the slab house, but you're not going to flood.
Right.
So isn't it better to pay the same and not flood than it is to pay the same and flood? So, I mean, there's a conscious effort to keep people from flooding from this point forward. Now, I will tell you that we just announced we're getting this $1.5 billion to help people that have been impacted. So we're not getting that money into the city coffers until later this year. I know it's been 10 months. We're soon going to be on the anniversary. Some people are going to have to be patient with us till we get this federal funding, that the city of Houston will be able to help people raise their house, repair their house, build higher in their house. I mean, there will be some funds. City of Houston will have money to help these people who have been underserved before. So I know it's not good to have to wait that long, but that's what we're really going to have to do.
All right, we're talking with Bill Baldwin. Bill, will a permit trigger the Chapter 19 rule?
There are hard holes on these properties effective September 1. There'll be immediately a look by the city engineer and the floodplain management office to see if they're in the 100 and 500-year floodplain. Where we've gotten the industry, real estate, has gotten bad because we've never disclosed the 500-year floodplain. Mm-hmm. So, and those houses flooded. I want to be very clear about something, though. The structures that flooded in Harvey, more of them were outside the floodplain than inside the floodplain. Statistically, over 50% more were outside the floodplain and they flooded. So this rule, these Chapter 19 regulations, are just that 37% of land. The new rules are soon going to be in place for areas outside of the floodplain also, which will require higher construction and increase costs when people go to remodel their house. But yes, permitting will have a hard hold on the 100 and 500 year floodplain automatically. If it's if it's $10,000 or less, they're going to immediately, your permit will be removed. The hold will be removed within a few hours. You want to go replace your water heater, your air conditioning unit, re-roof, they're going to let you go do that just fine. If you do a substantial improvement, greater than 50% of the home value, you're not going to get permission to do that.
Wow.
There is an appeals process, though. I mean, there is a general appeal. You could appeal to the city engineer, and that's a day or two to form that appeal. So let's say you wanted to do an addition 50% greater than the current house, and in Harvey, on your street, you got 2 inches of water above the curb, and the new rule would be 4 feet high. You can go and justify why it doesn't make sense to be 4 feet above higher in the air. And you would try first at the city level, and then there's a general appeals board where common sense will apply, much like the planning commission, but it will be for individuals to go to a citizen panel appointed by the mayor and city council for the general appeals. And I think people are going to start using the general appeals board pretty quickly, don't you think?
Quickly, I believe so. What about the waiver foreclosures, Bill? We feel that the city is going to be hit hard with the waiver foreclosures, where people are just going to say, I don't want to live here, I don't want to deal with it, I'm just going to walk away.
I can't afford it. I can't afford to do the remodel. I agree with you. There are going to be neighborhoods and pockets of our city that are going to experience a fair amount of foreclosures and transition into new types of housing that don't flood. The only thing I can say, I mean, it sounds, it's cruel in some ways, but we can't continue to let housing and housing stock continue to flood. It's just not right. And it typically has been the poorest among us that have bought into these areas or been taken advantage of that have continually flooded. We know of instances where homes in the last decade have flooded 7 times, where $100,000 houses have gotten $1 million worth of FEMA money over the last decade. Look, I'm a liberal Democrat, but I don't think that's a good use of our money, and I don't think that's fair to those individuals that keep remodeling or buying these houses that have flooded and flooded and flooded. I don't think the rainfall is going to get any less. I don't think any of these problems solve flooding. They just solve how we build in the floodplain. It's going to take a decade or so to fix our flooding problem. So this ordinance keeps structures built from this point forward from flooding, not just for this decade or next decade. Houses last 50 years or 100 years. So I think I applaud the mayor and the city for taking a proactive approach that's probably a little aggressive for today's flooding, but is taking into account that housing stock is going to last generations.
Do you believe the city is prepared for this change with permitting, hiring people? If you're an engineer coming out of Fairview or U of H or A&M, you look like you're going to be finding a job at the city of Houston.
I think it's a valid concern.
Okay.
I think they understand the repercussion if they're not prepared. We put in a new executive director of the permitting center. Chris Butler's doing a great job. They've been training people. We have been working on electronic submittals that can go into effect about the same time, so you could apply for your permit from your home. You shouldn't have to go down to the permitting center and wait. We've worked on expediting procedures, named a new city engineer last week, getting the floodplain management office prepared for the onslaught, getting the general appeals board prepared. So I think we're being as proactive as we can with a city with limited resources.
We're here in the studio with Bill Baldwin, and we're talking about flooding, how it's changed the landscape of real estate here in the Houston area. Let me ask you a quick question. I know we're running out of time, but if people want to find out about Chapter 19, where do they go on the website to find that out?
HoustonRecovers.com is a very good general place that gives you a lot of information. If you go to cityofhouston.gov and you go into Public Works and Engineering, you can also find very good information how to find the map. You need to know where your house or property sits with regards to the 100-year floodplain and the 500-year floodplain right now. Don't wait till you need it, but we just need to be able to go find the 500-year floodplain.
All right, we're with Bill Baldwin. Bill, you started a PAC, and I'd like to give you a couple of minutes to talk about your PAC and the impact that you expect it to have here in the greater Houston area. Somebody was telling me last night that you had some great people come to your first PAC meeting. Eric Holder was there, so that tells me, wow, that is pretty good. So tell us about your PAC.
We just launched it. It's called Your Houston PAC. We have a website, yourhoustonpac.com. We have a Facebook site, Your Houston PAC. Please go there and take a look. It is nonpartisan. It is just local. It is quality of life issues. Most things are quality of life, and it is school, it is county, and it is, the city of Houston. It educates primarily. Its primary focus is to educate people on items just like this, or density ordinance, or sidewalks, or tree ordinance, or schools. So it provides education and information into neighborhoods and to the politicians. We're educating politicians about what this means in their neighborhoods also. It advocates for certain things, a city to act like a grown-up city, not a backward city. We can't keep doing things the old ways and expect a different outcome. And then it does elect like-minded people who want to be a progressive city of the 21st century.
All right, we've been talking with Bill Baldwin. Bill has been giving us some impact of what's happening in the city of Houston in Chapter 19. Now, Bill's been talking about city of Houston. Imagine if you lived out in the county.
Right.
We have not heard anything of what the county's doing or what they expect to mitigate when we come to the flooding issues other than opening bayous and widening them and things of that nature. Bill, and if you took Houston out of the county would be the 6th largest city in the country.
Yes.
So we still got a huge issue out in the county. Do you expect them to be as aggressive as city of Houston has been?
They're not going to be as aggressive. They've adopted an initial change at about 1 foot higher than they were, and they haven't regulated near to this extent. A lot of their efforts, the water's coming this direction, so we're impacted by the collection of a lot of watersheds coming together into Buffalo Bayou. So the city is greater impacted than the county. In the county where they've had those mass plan developments, they've done a fair job of dealing with the drainage issue in those areas. It's the low-lying county properties that were built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s that continue to flood. I think they're going to be bought out. I don't see a solution for them.
All right. Bill Baldwin with Bolivar Realtor. Give your number if people want to get in touch with you, Bill. If they're looking for a realtor, I don't mind them calling you.
713-862-1600, yourblvd.com.
All right, Bill Baldwin's here in the studio with us. Our next part of the show will be Wheels. We're going to take a quick break, bring in our next guest, and I want to thank Bill Baldwin for coming in, sharing this information on the Real Estate Corner. Thinking about buying or selling, real estate can be a very complicated process. Finding one, how much can you afford? Get survey, put a home on the market, review the net sheets, taxes, advice on financing, homestead exemptions, advice on insurance, what kind of mortgage, inspections, considering offers, negotiations, submitting an offer, how good are the schools, down payment assistance, title insurance, home warranties, closing costs, final walkthrough. These are the pieces of the puzzle of home ownership. I'm the person who helps put it together and the glue that keeps it together. Give me a call, Shad Bogany. Welcome back to the Real Estate Corner. I want to again thank Bill Baldwin for coming in on the show and talking about Chapter 19. I'm sure that you did not know the information that he talked about tonight. One thing I want to share with you why voting is so important. Did you know that flood insurance expires July 31st? If they do not renew flood insurance, you will not be able to get flood insurance on your house come July 31st, 2018? Yes. That's why voting is important. Why do they continue to kick the can down the road? Why don't they just fix it? It doesn't make any sense. It's not, it's the Democrats' fault, it's the Republicans' fault. I do know one part has three branches of the government, and they need to fix flood insurance. The Democrats want to fix flood insurance. We've got to fix it. So that is my flood insurance speech, and I'm just going to tell you, come July 31st, we're in the middle of hurricane season. You will not be able to get flood insurance unless we get an extension. Call your local congressman, call your senator, and ask them about renewing flood insurance. Sharon Stodghill, my favorite family law attorney. Thank you for coming in and spending some time with us. And I'm going to get right into the show with you. Tell us why wills are so important, because I think it is the most I think it hurts the minority community more than any other community not having wills in place. So I'm going to let you go from there.
Well, the biggest problem I see, Shad, is when people die without wills, their property winds up going to people that they may not even know very well. Or it may go to the wrong person in the family. The typical issue I run into is mother dies 8 years ago. There's 9 kids. One child remains in the home with another child. One child is disabled, and so now we're roll forward 8 or 9 years, and now we've got back property taxes.
Okay.
And we're trying to figure out how to fix this, and none of it's easy. Whereas if mother had had a will, we would be in much better shape.
Why do you think people don't want to do a will? I mean, I even thought about it myself. I guess it's to say that I'm not going to be here anymore. It's my demise. Someone asked me today, have you set your funeral arrangements up? I'm like, no, I hadn't looked at my funeral arrangements. But I guess it's sort of like the real thing. It's planning and getting things done, and we tend to not want to do that. Any particular reason? What if families told you why they never did a will?
They think they're in good health. They put it off till tomorrow. It's not something people don't like to deal with their mortality.
Okay, and what about situations where you have one sibling? In other words, the family only had one child. The mother and father only had one child. So they said, "Well, we don't need to do a will. She's going to get everything." Why is it still important to do a will?
Because it adds more cost. Clearing title to real estate. You might have creditors to deal with. You might have a lot of things that come into play.
Okay. Once we do the will, do I automatically start being able to sell something, or do I have to do something else once I've said I've got a will, it's been signed, notarized, everything's done, and I've now gone to heaven. So what happens at that point?
Well, I've actually had some clients think that just having the will transfer title, and it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
You have to have a chain and a link of title, as you
Okay.
all know, because otherwise a title company's not going to help you out. So you have to probate the will. And if you're not going to probate the will, you could maybe do a family settlement agreement not to probate the will. Even then, you've got to turn around and do an affidavit of heirship to record in the deed records where the house is located. And some title companies won't let you do that for 2 years after the decedent's death. So there's different rules and regulations depending on who you're dealing with.
So let me ask you a question in regards to how I want to ask this question. So let's just say that I have a will and it's gone to probate. And how long does that normally take to probate a will?
Well, the guidelines are if you file it for probate, there's a 10-day waiting period. And after the 10 days has passed, you can set it for hearing. So it's a matter of what court you land in. It's a matter of the schedule for the people that have to come to court. the attorney, the applicant. You may need witnesses depending on if the will was self-proved, if it was a holographic will. It just all depends.
Okay. I just got a question sent to me about the flood insurance, and it said, we'll come back to Sharon. It said, what if you purchased the flood insurance before the deadline? Flood insurance is in place. When I tell you that it expired, that means will not be able to purchase it after the deadline. So whatever's in, and so when it comes up for renewal, you won't be able to renew it. So those people who have to renew it on July 31st, if it is not extended, then you will not be able to purchase flood insurance, and you're in the middle of hurricane season. So that's the deal on the flood insurance. So Sharon, explain ASHRAP affidavits, because and some people use them in a strange way. How does ASHRAP affidavits help us convey property?
Well, in a situation where you don't have a lot of people in title, so to speak, it's a cost-effective way to clear title of the house. Let's say mom and dad died, they had the one child. Okay, mom and dad were married, community property. So dad's, under that set of circumstances, we're assuming all of this is after 1993,
Right.
when the law changed. Dad's part goes to mom. Mom dies. Mom's part goes to the son. You still have to do two separate affidavits of heirship because you're dealing with an undivided community property interest in each case.
Okay.
So it's a cost-effective way to clear title and get something closed.
We know family structures have changed, Sharon. I mean, it's not the same mother and dad and two kids and a dog anymore. Everything's kind of changed in our new world that we live in. And so would you go through explaining how property is divided up, and just kind of take us through so people will understand how the system works? Because some people feel that, I didn't know about that child over there, so they don't get anything. Dad never spoke to him about anything, never even mentioned it to me about that. So could you walk us through how it works?
Absolutely. My favorite war story, I guess, is husband and wife get married, and they go and buy a house. And both of them have children from previous marriages, yeah.
Right.
So they talk about getting a will, they never get a will done. Dad dies, and so his half goes to his children. And the surviving spouse, the wife, retains her half.
Okay.
She has a homestead right, so she can't be kicked out of the house.
Right.
But it's an accounting nightmare.
Wow. So, but dad's children who passed away wants their portion of their dad's estate.
They do, but they can't make her leave.
Wow.
So it's a partnership of people who already don't like each other.
Right, because the only reason my dad is with you because you left my mother for you. So
That could very well be the case.
I'm just being real.
That could be the case.
I'm just being real. So explain to me how it works with outside kids.
Oh, the outside meaning.
In other words, we got the family whole,
Right.
and dad had kids from somebody else, but still married to mom, but had kids with somebody else.
Well, those kids are heirs.
So they come into play too.
They do.
All right.
Wherever they came from.
Right.
Could be half brothers, half siblings.
Okay.
Could be equitable adoption.
Okay.
There's a fair amount of folks in our community that sometimes just bring kids in.
But
They raise them as their own, and they say they're going to adopt them, and so
But they never adopted them.
they don't. So that can come into play too.
Wow.
That usually you got to go to court to pursue that, but in some cases we do a declaration to determine heirship when we got too many people in title, too many heirs to chase, and you've got the equitable adoption issue that comes up. You want that to be adjudicated by a court.
All right. So let's talk about the executor of the state. How do people go about picking an executor of the state, and how would you recommend? Because it seems that I've noticed in families that they usually pick the person who they feel has the best business sense of some sort, and then the other siblings are fighting over, why did you spend money here? Why did you spend money here? Where are we going to get our money? Not knowing that the executor, well, I'm going to let you say what the executor of the state does.
Well, when we talk to my clients about it, typically, let's say they've got 3 kids, and it's not always the oldest very often, as you indicated, someone who's
Okay.
got some business sense. It could be another lawyer,
Okay.
could be a CPA.
So it doesn't have to be a family member to be the executive? of
No,
the
it
estate?
doesn't. It could
Okay.
be anybody. If it's a
Okay.
family member, it may be someone who has special expertise.
Okay.
Or maybe someone that's able to deal with the other siblings in a controlled situation, and they're able to explain. I had actually had a client in this week who was named as executor in his father's will, and he's got two siblings that don't manage money really well. So he's kind of taken the reins, and he's trying to set it up where they understand it.
Okay. So as we move forward, how does real estate come into play? Because that's where I see it most of the time. And I tell families all the time, because we're coming up on a break, so I'm going to go into my quick story. I don't care how close your family is. I don't care how y'all sing Kumbaya every Christmas and y'all sit around the campfire, y'all do vacations. When your parents die and money comes to play, everything seems to go away, all that Kumbaya. Do you experience that as you...
All the time.
All right. And so the will sets everything in motion on how the parent or parents want it to be handled in that process.
That is correct.
Okay. And I talk about this, but I remember once you told me you probated a will that was written on a paper towel.
Literally.
Okay. So you can, should the will be notarized?
It needs to be in the testator's handwriting and signed by the testator, as long as you can find two witnesses who are familiar with the testator's handwriting.
Wow. The numbers here again are 281-837-2222. Sharon, give your number out on how people can get in touch with you. Your specialization is family law.
Actual estate planning, probate,
Okay.
713-464-6412.
That is Sharon Stodghill. She's helped my family. She's helped lots of my clients there to get things done. And you know, Sharon, I always get this call. Well, can I do it without an attorney? I am sure you can, but why would you deal with something so valuable and try to do it on your own? And then that's when I see the mess up, and then they call you and want you to correct it.
That sounds familiar.
We've got Sharon Stodghill here in the studio with us. The numbers again are 281-837-2222. Are you out there and you have a question for Sharon? Please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're coming up on, we've got a couple of people who've sent us a text, Sharon, and when we come from the break, I'm going to read them. My name is Shad Boggany. We're here every Tuesday from 6:15 to 7:15, helping you in real estate, trying to guide you. Go out to our website, www.shadbogganyteam.com. That's www.shadbogganyteam.com. Go out and visit our website, see all the information we got, videos, everything there. You can watch the Real Estate Corner on YouTube, Iconic TV. You can go to YouTube, pull us up. We're there on YouTube, and you can watch the shows that you've missed. We're going to take a quick 10-second station break and be right back with the Real Estate Corner. Thinking about buying or selling, real estate can be a very complicated process. Finding one, how much can you afford? Get survey, put a home on the market, review the net sheets, taxes, advice on financing, homestead exemptions, advice on insurance, what kind of mortgage, inspections, considering offers, negotiations, submitting an offer, how good are the schools, down payment assistance, title insurance, home warranties, closing costs, final walkthrough. These are the pieces of the puzzle of home ownership. I'm the person who helps put it together and the glue that keeps it together. Give me a call, Shad Boggany. I'm your host, Shad Boggany. We've got in the studio with us Sharon Stodghill, who's a family law attorney, probate, really good at it. She handles a lot of the business for my family. If I was writing the will, which I do have one. Probably need to update it though, Sharon. The numbers here again, and we probably updated it several times as we move forward. 281-837-2222. Sharon, I got an off the air question. My mother is 88 years old, had a tax exempt status. Her home was rebuilt, and now the county says she owes taxes for 2016 and 2017. We thought her exemption was still in place. What should we do?
I would go over to HCAT and ask them why they think it's been removed or changed.
And if you call me, caller, off the air, I'll give you Chris Compton's number. Chris is someone who protests his taxes, has done this show several times, did the first Iconic show with us here, and I'll give you Chris's number, and you can call. You can call me at 713-667-1000, because once you file that exemption, it stays on the property. It stays on the property once you file that exemption. So it does not go away. You just can't have more than one exemption. You can't have an exemption on all your properties only. You got to pick the one that you want to have. So Sharon, let's talk a little bit about, and I'd like for you, I know you got your chart there, would you walk us through the division of property? The laws changed in 1993, and kind of give us an idea, because people always seem to think they know it, and they know that such and such not getting anything, or brother, we hadn't seen Brother Joe in 100 years. I mean, we hadn't seen him, we don't even know where he's at. So would you explain how this works within the state of Texas?
Well, the law did change in 1993. Prior to 1993, if a husband and wife were married and they had one child, the husband died in 1992, the husband's one half went to the child.
Okay.
Of course, the child might be 3 years old.
Right.
So if you back then, if you go to sell the property, then you got to go to court to get permission to sell it. So when the law changed in 1993, as long as all of the children of the marriage were dad dies, if it was from that marriage, then the community property one half goes to mom.
Okay.
But separate property, that's a little more confusing. Let's say dad owned the house, he got married, they had a child. Still is his separate property. So if he passes away, then it's a 1/3 life estate to the surviving spouse, and then the rest of the 2/3 remainder goes to the child.
As long as he bought the property
Before marriage.
before marriage.
Correct.
Okay. Wow. The numbers here again are 281-837-2222. We're talking with Sharon Stodghill. Sharon, give your number out again.
713-464-6412.
If you're looking for a title company, I use American Title. Her name is Charlene Clancy, and her team of Eric and Ron at 5802 Valverde. They do a great title company. They do really good work. When you come to title companies, it's all about service. Policies cost the same, no matter which one you use. It's about the one who answers the phone and be able to answer all those silly questions you may have, which may be silly to them but important to you. That's the type of work that Charlene Clancy does at American Title, 5802 Valverde. Give her a call, 713-784-0006. So Sharon, let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about the change in the family structure. Then we got partners. So how do partners, or two men who've gotten married or two women who've gotten married, how does that come into play, and do the same rules follow?
The same rules apply. Exactly. It doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't make any difference. And so what about the people who become common law? You don't hear that a lot anymore, but a lot of people decided to live together. And so, how do you become common law? Is it 6 months, 4 months? Is it a year?
It's fact driven, but the elements of a common law marriage are you agree to be married, you actually live together, and you hold yourself out as.
And even though you've never jumped the broom, so to speak.
That is correct. I mean, I ask people this all the time. Are you or are you not? You know, have you filed joint tax returns? Did you buy? What I run into a lot is when an unmarried couple will go and refinance the house. And then I see time after time, husband and wife on the deed of trust. And when that happens, that spouse is brought in.
Okay.
From the for the title company's perspective.
That it's all part of the deal now.
That's exactly it. I mean, and if you don't know that, and you don't watch which terms you use on your deed of trust.
What about separate property? Because you mentioned it and gave us an example of it, and I like the way you tell the story with examples. But separate property, how should we handle separate property if we're coming into marriage? I had a bunch of property before I got married, or the one that's real common is that the wife or the husband owned the house earlier before they got married, and now they're getting married, but the house was in the previous situation where he was divorced or she was divorced.
It's separate property, so that needs to be discussed with the spouses.
Okay.
You can convert separate property to community property in the state of Texas. It's called a transmutation agreement.
Okay.
But it may also be the subject of a premarital agreement, depending on how skittish one of the spouses are and how much money is on the table.
Okay. So so the rules are separate. Separate property is my separate property. What if I'm contributing? What if I'm going over and fixing your rent house all the time? Even though you had it before, I got into the relationship with you, but I'm fixing it all the time. I paid the taxes on it last month. So how does that come into play?
Well, for one thing, the rental income from that property is community property.
Okay.
Unless you guys have agreed either in a premarital or a postnuptial agreement that it's separate income.
Okay.
So you get into claims for reimbursement, you get into claims for effort on your part. So you're benefiting from the income. Because
Right.
the income coming in could be used to acquire other rental property or other investments. So the claims can be complicated.
It can be. Number two again, 281-837-2222. We're in the studio with Sharon Stodghill. Sharon, give your phone numbers out again.
713-464-6412.
And so we've talked about separate property, we've talked about common law, we've talked about the new age of partners and all that good stuff. What about life? I know in California everything is done through a trust, and I hear people talking about life trusts, life estates. Could you explain what those are and how do I determine which one I'm going to use?
Well, I think you're talking about a revocable trust.
Okay.
And the reason they're used in California so prevalently is because the cost of probate out there is a lot more expensive than it is in Texas.
Okay.
The clients that I get involved with on revocable trust, normally you're doing it for privacy issues.
Okay.
They may be trying to avoid probating the will, maybe inviting a contest from a child they disinherited because maybe they haven't seen them in 20 years, or they gave them their inheritance already. But mostly it's privacy issues, that and not wanting to go into court.
Okay. I know you know the answer to this, and so I wanted to put this out. Say I've been separated from my husband. Is anything as a legal separation?
Not in Texas.
Okay. So I want to get that out right now. So say I hadn't seen my separated husband or the one who left and been going, our wife, hadn't seen him in 10 years. They determined they won the lottery. All of a sudden, hey, as long as you get the money, can you just send me a little $3,000 a month or whatever? I hadn't seen this person in 10 years. You didn't even know if they were still living.
It doesn't matter. You're stuck.
You're stuck. So if I win the lottery, and so it's really not good to be going on this long-term separation deal because we see it all the time in the community. Get ready to buy a house. Well, I was married, but I hadn't seen him. We don't even convert. We have no children together, but they never got divorced. So that person, if something happens to me, if I didn't do a will, everything comes into play.
It becomes a mess because you turn around and it creates cloud on title when they show up. I've had clients that got married to spouse number 2, fully believing that they were divorced, and they weren't.
Wow. And you got to get that all cleared
It's a
up.
disaster.
We're talking with Sharon Stodghill. And guys, I'm bringing up stuff because I know you're thinking about it and you're out there. And y'all, and it's people listening to us living this story right now. I know you're out there living this story. The numbers again are 281-837-2222. We've got a few minutes left in the show. So Sharon, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us what people should be doing and what the number one issues that you see out there, if you could, in a couple of minutes, and how people can solve them and not get in this mess, and why it's so important that they set up something.
Well, if you want your property to go to the people you want it to go to, either outright or in trust or in the percentages that you want it to go in, do a will. Absolutely do a will. There's something else in Texas now called a transfer on death deed. I'm doing that for some of my clients.
What is that?
Husband and wife are married. And they have two children, let's say.
Okay.
So it's community property, so they do a transfer on death deed, leaving it to each other.
Okay.
And then there's provisions in the deed to pass it on down to children, and if children predeceased, down to their children. So it depends on how the ages of the children and the grandchildren involved. But it literally can avoid probate on the death of the first spouse.
Wow.
Entirely, because a lot of times they have all of their accounts are set up with joint tenants, rights of survivorship, or beneficiary designations.
What happens when you can't find a family member and you're trying to clear a title up to sell the property and you hadn't seen Uncle David in 20, 30 years? So can we ever sell that property?
You can, but you have to go through a dependent administration.
Okay.
Usually somebody's died without a will.
Okay.
And so court order, property can get sold, but the portion of the funds, closing proceeds, has to eventually be sent to the state of Texas. It's cheated.
Okay.
That person may or may never show up.
So when you go to the state of Texas, once a year they give you this little magazine, usually in Zest magazine, and everybody goes down that list looking at their name, seeing what money. So that's how
That's where it goes.
That's where the money goes. The numbers again, 281-837-2222. What else, Sharon, should people be aware of that you think they should have?
Powers of attorney. Powers of attorney are very important. If you don't get them in place, let's say for your grandmother. Grandmother's starting to forget things.
Right.
Dementia. Get powers of attorney in place before she gets past the point where she can't do it. And it needs to be someone who is trustworthy, because very often what happens is it's a neighbor, it's a caregiver, it's somebody taking advantage of grandmother, does a power of attorney. And we hear about it in court all the time. Somebody's abused their power of attorney. They've deeded property to themselves. They've pulled money out of the account with no receipts, breached their fiduciary duty but by the time that happens, the money's gone.
What if when people do a will and never signed it? They passed away before they signed it.
It's not a valid will. Died intestate.
Okay, so if you did it, you need to get it done. And if you've got a terminal illness and you praying and hoping that you come out of it, it's still good to put your affairs in order. Get those wills done. And let me say this, for the young people out there are a lot of you in the cemetery. So you need to put your affairs in order on how, if you got children, how you want it taken care of, how you want your affairs to be taken care of as you move forward. It's just good business sense to set yourself on a wheel. Sharon Stodghill does it and can do it for you and help you out on that end. But I know as we get young, when we're young, we think we live forever. I know I did, and now I've come to realization that I got to stop that somewhere. But we need to really take more charge of our personal affairs. Wouldn't you agree, Sharon?
That's what I tell people every day when they call, because I'm having to figure out who died, where did they die, and who are you? Where are we going with the conversation?
Right.
And I try to just say, this should have been done, but let's do this now, let's do this now, let's do this now. And then I give them homework to come back with.
Okay.
Most of the time.
So, guys, you've been listening to the Real Estate Corner. I'm your host, Shad Bogany. I'm here every Tuesday from 6:15 to 7:15 here on KWWJ 1360 and 96.9. Catch us on Saturday morning on Iconic TV at Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, you can see this show, or Sunday night at 8 p.m., or go to the YouTube channel and just put in the Real Estate Corner. You'll be able to find this video, this tape, this show here. So if you missed it, you can go online and see it. My name is Ch.19. Guys, I'll see you next week on the Real Estate Corner. Thinking about buying or selling, real estate can be a very complicated process. Finding one, how much can you afford? Get survey, put a home on the market, review the net sheets, taxes, advice on financing, homestead exemptions, advice on insurance, what kind of mortgage, inspections, considering offers, negotiations, submitting an offer, how good are the schools, down payment assistance, title insurance, home warranties, closing costs, final walkthrough. These are the pieces of the puzzle of home ownership. I'm the person who helps put it together and the glue that keeps it together. Give me a call, Ch.19.